Hello and welcome to a special edition of RGM. In today's video I'll be revisiting the Tesla Steampunk Sega Master System that I built nearly 2 years ago now. For those of you who watch me regularly on my Retro Gadget Man channel, you'll notice that I'm not in my usual studio. Today I'm in one of my living rooms where I keep my steampunk creations, or some of them anyway. I thought I'd go to the effort and set up a different scenario. That's one of my gadgets there that I made, my Tesla TV. That took me about 3 months to build, that did. I've got Matilda there, inspired by the robot from Hugo. Behind me there I've got Talos, my owl, amongst other things up on the shelf. The room's got stuff all around it, and that's just a few of the things that I've made. And for those of you who know me already through my Facebook pages, Steampunk Times and Steampunk Frank, one of my other hobbies is retro gadgets. Vintage computers and gadgets from the 1960s to the 1990s. I've started a YouTube channel a few months ago now all about retro computers and gadgets all the way back to the 1960s to the 1990s. I find them quite interesting. I've always been into that kind of stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, you may want to take a look. I'll leave a link in the description below. Today I'm mixing the theme up a little bit. I've got a bit of both of my hobbies here in one theme. All because of the Steampunk Sega Master System. So I hope this isn't too confusing to either party that might be watching right now, because they both contain things from both hobbies, retro computing or gaming, and obviously my steampunk. I did put quite a lot of thought into this, and I thought about different ways I could do this, but I'm thinking what I'm doing here right now is working just right. I don't think it'll confuse people too much. Okay, so what actually is steampunk? Well, it's quite a hard thing to describe actually. It's Victorian science fiction. If you've read any of H.G. Wells or Jules Verne's books, they probably describe it a little bit, because it's, like I said, it's Victorian science fiction. It's a past, an alternative past, where people obviously imagined gadgets of the future but had them in the past. Modern day gadgets reimagined in the past as if they were built in the past, using materials that were available then, such as brass and wood. A lot of people think that steampunk is just about steam, well, I disagree with that, because back in the Victorian times there were electrical things around. For example, the battery that was invented by I've forgotten his name now. I researched it before I did this as well. It's like Volta, Andreas Volta, I think it is. Italian inventor. He invented the battery back in 1800, amongst other things. Electric cars, they were around in 1906. Not quite Victorian, I know, but still, turn of the century. It's over, well, nearly 120 years ago, isn't it, nearly? So yes, it's not just about steam. For me, I love the Victorian clothing as well, and the furnishings of the time. Some people make some fantastic costumes. I've done a couple of things myself in the past, but I'm more into the gadgets of the time, the electronics. Nichola Tesla was a big inspiration for me. I love the stuff that he did, and some of his ideas were just quite out there. A good inventor, but not a businessman, unfortunately, because he could have made a killing. But yes, obviously that's where I get my ideas from, some of his stuff. I like the scientific look of the equipment of the time. The wooden bases, the brass, the cloth covered components for insulation. There have been some films as well over the years that have been made. Obviously some of H.G. Wells and Jules Verne's books have been turned into movies. One of my all-time favourites is H.G. Wells' Time Machine, the original one. I do like the later one as well, that has its good points. Journey to the Centre of the Earth, I'm sure most of you have seen that. Again, fantastic machines. Obviously it couldn't exist really. Certainly not a time machine, or maybe, who knows. Wild Wild West, that's another film. That doesn't get such great reviews, but again, I enjoy that film. It's got some fantastic gadgets in it again, that have been built using equipment from the past, from that time period. Oh, and First Men in the Moon. I first saw that film when I was about 10 years old. When I remember a guy in his greenhouse builds a spaceship, and he manages to get into space and then land on the moon. And if I remember rightly, it's got train buffers all the way around the outside, so as it rolls down onto the moon, obviously it acts as a a cushion and springs to stop them from getting thrown around inside. Well, they'll still get thrown around. But yeah, that's a really good film as well. It's definitely worth a watch. So I hope that gives you a better understanding of what steampunk is. Like I said, I've only given a brief outline. If you Google it, there's a much better example out there, I think on Wikipedia. I think that's enough of the history lesson, so let's take a look now at the Sega Master System. And when I'm building things, I like to repurpose items, I like to upcycle. The case for this is actually an old cutlery box. The tube there was out of a black and white TV. That funnel there was from a jug. I've got some radio parts here from old radios I've collected over the years. The brass I cut out myself. I've got some drawer handles there, added some box feet. I do like to use real materials myself because I like the way that they age in patina. Some people will use plastic and they will spray paint it gold, which is another way you can do things, but I always think that it might wear off, so I will stick with real materials. Plus I like working with brass as well and wood. I found it quite therapeutic. One of the challenges I had with building this was getting a TV and a Sega Master System in the same box working together. I did have quite a few mishaps while I was building this. First of all, I'll start off by saying the idea came to me 5 years before I actually built this. I had the box and had the black and white TV. I actually took the TV apart back then, and I was quite nervous of taking it apart because CRT screens can hold quite a lot of charge even after they're switched off, so you have to be very careful when you're handling them. In fact, to be on the safe side, you do need to discharge the tube before handling it. Even after a week or two, they can still have a high amount of voltage left inside them. So if you're thinking of making anything like this yourself, do proceed with caution and obviously do your research first. Yes, so one of the other challenges I had was the tuner board on the TV broke while I was working on this. So my plans were to take the RF signal out the Sega straight into the back of the TV and do it that way and tune it in. But unfortunately, as I say, the tuner broke on the TV and I didn't have another one at the time. So I almost gave up at that point. And then I heard that you could do a modification to the Sega Master System and get a composite video output. The TV motherboard actually had a composite video input, which was handy. So I did the modification, got a few components, I can't remember exactly what they were now. But it allows you to add a composite video output to the Sega straight into the TV, which is a better picture quality as well. So I ended up doing that. And while I was doing that, the Sega Master System that I had at the time that I was using for this died on me, just suddenly stopped working. So that was another setback, which was quite disappointing. Again, I put it on the shelf. I thought I was going to leave this for a bit. I'll go back to it another day. But then I thought, you know, I'll get another one. They're quite plentiful on eBay. I got another one, took it apart, got the board in, did the composite mod, plugged it all in, and it kept on working. It was still going okay. So I thought, right, there must be a sign, so I'll carry on. So then I finished off cutting out the slot there for the cartridge to go into. Made the brass surround with the screen. Covered up all the electrical components of the tube to make it safe, so you can't get a shock off it should you accidentally touch it. So it's quite safe to use. If you're touching it there, not getting electrocuted, or not showing it anyway. Anyway, after I made this, I put it on YouTube, and everyone went quite mad about it. It got quite a lot of interest, and I was quite surprised, actually, quite taken back. Because normally when I make something, I put it on Facebook, gets a little bit of interest, and then I'm on to the next thing. But this did quite well. On YouTube alone, it got about 14,000 views at the time. The video is still on there, I'll put a link in the description below. Facebook, it got quite a lot of interest as well. I had lots of people asking me questions about it, whether I would make them one, or you know, any work in progress pictures, stuff like that. This is a one-off. Everything I build is a one-off. I don't really make twos of things, because once I've made one thing, I'm on to the next thing basically. And I said it was, like I said before, it was quite a difficult thing to make, with all the problems that I had. But I'm thankful that it's still working. It's 2 years on now. It's still going. We do occasionally play it. I think it was about a year ago, it might have been 18 months ago, I decided to make a matching controller for it. I had a broken controller where the D-pad was missing, which is quite common with these. And I etched out a piece of brass. I used Photoshop. I used the old sticker that was on there before, photocopied it, put it into Photoshop, eventually got the size right, did my own design, etched it out in brass, and I got an old flooring sample, oak flooring sample, cut it out, got the circuit board in, added a cloth cable. For the D-pad there I used a piece of leather, there's a piece of wood under there, I used a piece of leather. So it is usable. It's not quite as ergonomic as the original one, but then it's not supposed to be. Again, I want it to look like it was made in the past and not today. And then the next thing I made was the cartridge, the working Sonic the Hedgehog cartridge. Again, that was a flooring sample. I drilled out a compartment for the flash card to go into out of a Sega cartridge. Put a piece of brass sheet on the front, they cut the holes out. At the time, well actually, sorry, yeah, I made that first actually, now I think about it, because I got the label made by somebody through eBay, the brass label there, because it was before I was doing the etching. If I make any more, I shall etch them out myself, because I think I prefer this way actually. Looks a bit more rustic looking, although that does look quite good. Okay, so let's take a closer look. For those who saw this originally, it never had a Sega logo, Sega badge. I made this myself out of brass, so I etched it out. I hand drew the logo there, and then filled in the remainder with some enamel paint. I tried to find the oldest Sega logo I could. You can trace the history of Sega right back to 1946 when it first started out. It was a father and son team who, the company was called Service Games, and they made slot machines originally. That's the sheet of brass there that I cut out for the cartridge slot. That's the back of the CRT there. As you can see, I've insulated all the dangerous parts. The most dangerous part is under the suction cup there. That's where the thousands of volts are. There's the cartridge. That was quite fun to make actually. And then an old flooring sample. I read the label on the back of one of the original cartridges, and that's actually what's on there. And I retyped that out using my old typewriter and made it look old. And then there's the controller. Again, made out of oak. Etched out the brass. As I had the D-pad missing, I made my own. Used a little piece of plywood and a piece of leather, and it works quite well surprisingly. You do know you've held this after a while though. It's not very ergonomic. But then I wanted it to look this way, to look the part, as if it was made in the past. Let's try that Sonic cartridge. So yes, obviously it's 2 years on. Like I said, it's still working. I'll take you through some pictures now of the making of it, show you some images. There's not many, because at the time I didn't take an awful lot of photographs of things while I was making them. And this obviously kept going wrong, so I was a little bit put off. So we'll have a look at those next. Okay, let's start off with the game cartridge. As you can see, that's that piece of oak that I used, which was a flooring sample. I machined all of that out to house the EEPROM cartridge from the game itself. I had to take quite a lot of measurements to keep trying it to make sure it would fit in easy without forcing it. There's the original controller there with the missing D-pad. I have saved the case. Again, I used another piece of oak for this. I think that was from an old sofa actually. Cut some brass out after making a photocopy of the original sticker. I had to keep on machining it out one level at a time until the circuit board would fit comfortably and that the buttons would still work. I had to disassemble the PCB so I could feed the cable through the back of the new housing. I put some cloth over the cable as well to make it look a bit more authentic. It took a bit of doing this actually until it worked smoothly. And then onto the etching of the template there, that was hard work actually. It took quite a few attempts to get that right. But it was worth it in the end. And that's that finished there. Onto the main build itself now. Taking some measurements there for the tube, the mount for it. Cut some brass up to make a strap to go around the tube and covered it in velvet so it would keep it secure in place. Used a monster ring at the back there, some cloth tape over the yoke to protect it. Then it was onto the main build itself, again back to the cartridge slot, lining it all up, trying to make sure it would fit in and not force its way down onto the board and damage it. As you can see, the circuit board there for the TV, the cables, I had to extend them all so they would reach the tube while the lid was open so they could work on the inside. Then it was on to cutting out all the holes for everything to fit in, adding a switch to the PCB for the Sega itself, bypassing the original switch. Did the composite mod, that's the two boards together there squeezed in, so as you can see there's not a lot of room. And there it all is in its entirety, all finished. Looks a lot better with that Sega badge on. Well, I think that just about wraps up today's video. I will be making another device soon, in fact I've already started. It's Commodore themed this time. I do love the range of Commodore computers, so I'm going to try and incorporate that into the steampunk theme as well. For any of my steampunk friends watching this, if you think I should make any more videos on any of the gadgets I've made in the past, please let me know, because obviously this is the first one I've ever done. For the rest of you, if you didn't know what steampunk was before, hopefully you have a bit more insight now. Well, that leaves me just to say thanks for watching. If you did like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll be seeing you.